A hostel is social accommodation. It's a place where everything is shared, whether that is sharing your lives and your stories, or your living space, sharing your food, sharing your time in the city. At its core, it's all about the sharing.
That thing's a killer.
I don't know, apparently that's the name of it.
Gives you gas.
My name is Brian. I'm an American backpacker who turned into a hostel manager and then turned into a hostel consultant. Vagabond world traveler and all-around nice guy.
Technically, a hostel would be a place where an individual traveler can purchase one bed for a night. They don't have to book an entire room like a hotel. A hostel would then have, like I said, shared facilities, common area, common bathrooms, common kitchen where a traveler can cook their own food. And by definition, they must have dormitories, shared accommodation where you would come in, like I said, and buy just one bed instead of booking an entire room.
I still don't know why I travel really. It's like every few days you go through I go through like a bit of a re-evaluation of why exactly I'm doing it, what I'm gaining from it.
I wanted to do a big adventure going across Europe, and we hitchhiked for 6 weeks across Europe and back. And that's how it started, and when I realised what great fun it was, I've never stopped.
And it's the weirdest place I've ever seen. It's a celebration of life, I suppose.
As a backpacker, you get to travel around, you get to meet amazing people, you get to see all kinds of great things, you interact with people on a different level than you ever would in your normal life. But you're constantly on the road, which means that you're out of touch with your friends, with your family. So we said with a hostel, it's like having the best of both worlds. You're surrounded by these amazing people, you get this international atmosphere, all of that, but at the same time, you get to be grounded, you get to be stable in your lifetime, in your life, so you have kind of the best of both worlds. And so it was at that point that everything clicked for me, and I said, this is what I'm going to do with my life. I need to run hostels. First hostel I managed was the Gold Coast Hostel in Lagos, Portugal, down on the southern tip of the Algarve. Beautiful area, little beach town, essentially had a hostel, beautiful, brand new hostel, wasn't even finished being constructed, handed to me like a Christmas gift. I would have happily stayed at the Gold Coast. I love the hostel. That place is my baby. I quite literally built it with my own 2 hands, shredding my fingers on broken tiles and moving things here and there. My blood, sweat, and tears were definitely in that place, and I absolutely loved it. But the town itself did get a reputation as being a bit of a party town. The parties kind of started off as being pretty crazy as it was, and then every year got crazier and crazier and crazier to the point that they were just insane. I was running or attempting to run a non-party hostel in the middle of a party town, which didn't mean that we were a bunch of sticklers and said, no, you can't have fun. It just meant we didn't party in the hostel. We partied out in the bars in the city because they're a 2-minute stumble away from the hostel. So not having a party hostel simply meant that we would party elsewhere. But as the partiers went crazy other places and the parties went from crazy to insane, that meant all that insanity would come back to the hostel each night. Even if they weren't partying in the hostel, they were kind of bringing it back. And that did get pretty exhausting for me.
Yeah, I mean, I've ended up at parties that will go on and on and on for hours, and I'm a stranger at these places, and I'm welcomed in as a member of the family. I end up drinking toasts to my health, to their God. There's people I've met in various hostels. They've been traveling non-stop, always moving, and they're not happy with anything. Nothing lives up to their expectations, and nothing lives up to the past, the glory days. And I don't know, they just don't seem content with anything. And they're stuck. They keep on moving round and round, but they're not finding anything.
The way that I ended up in Romania, quite simply, I met a girl. Long story short.
So happy that you found me. I was looking for a new romance.
And I got a call from a hostel in Budapest. And I said, okay, what are you thinking about? And this is a friend of mine that I've been talking to for years about hostels and what makes a great hostel and what makes a bad hostel. He currently ran a hostel at the time and wanted to open up a second hostel. And he called me and said, you know how we've been talking about that ideal hostel, our perfect dream hostel? I want to do it. I want to do it. I'm getting set, I'm making the move, and I want you in. Would you come in here and help me set this up? And as soon as my friends found out that I was in fact working as his hostel consultant, I started getting calls from other hostels saying, right, now I really want you. When you're finished there, please come to my hostel. One of the offers was in Cluj-Napoca. A young lady said, we met at a conference, and she said, when you're finished in Budapest, would you come to Cluj and do some consulting for me? And so I originally came shortly after Budapest, came for a Christmas party just to check the place out, see the hostel, spend some time, get to know, the team and how it works. Came back again afterwards as the consultant, and then, as odds would have it, ended up staying on beyond the hostel consultant as the executive boyfriend. Romania, I find, is a fantastic place. Beautiful landscapes. The people are incredibly friendly, which I have to admit is not what I was expecting. The popular so-called knowledge, popular wisdom among the backpackers is that you should avoid Romania at all cost, because apparently Romania is dangerous. If you go to Romania, you're going to get mugged, you're going to get kidnapped, you're going to have all of your things stolen. There are gypsies everywhere. It's just a dangerous place to be. Don't do that. Go above it, go below it, go over it, but don't go through Romania. It has this terrible stigma that unfortunately is fun to tell. And so it ends up being this popular thing to say without actually having any basis for it. And so backpackers tell each other not to come. It's really, really unfortunate because this is a fantastic place.
Well, Cluj is a very interesting town. I think most people probably come here for the same reasons as I did. It's a passing through place, it's a staging place towards either going north to Maramuresh or going south to Bucharest.
I was on my way to Ukraine when I first came here. It was on the way, so I thought I'd pop in, see what it was all about. And it was strange. I parked my bike on the side of the road, went for a little walk around town looking for a hostel. I had nowhere to stay. I had no idea what was in the city. But just walking around, I got this good feeling from the place. I met some very, very good people here in Cluj, and made me want to stick around for a little while longer.
It's funny, every time I have an emergency, especially a medical emergency, I find just the right people are there. I had a kid, I hope it's not a gruesome story, I'll try not to make it too graphic, but I had a kid who was in the kitchen, he's cutting something up, he's in the middle of a conversation with somebody, oh yeah, that's a great story, not paying attention to what he's doing, and cut himself pretty badly on his finger. Badly enough that I thought something had broken in the kitchen because I was in the next room and all I heard was a crash as he looked down, saw his finger, fainted, and fell down onto the table. I ran into the room thinking, oh my God, something is broken, my cupboards just fell off the wall, this horrible crash. Ran in to see if everybody's okay, and I see him laying on the ground. Like, oh my God, what happened? Somebody mentions loud enough that the rest of the hostel can hear that he just cut his finger off, which was not the case at all. There was a little over-exaggeration, but it turns out that I had 4 senior level medical students from Sweden in the next room who, hearing this, jumped up, grabbed their industrial-size emergency first aid kit, which I've heard of travelers traveling with some Band-Aids, some prep stuff. These guys came in with a full-size box. It looked like a fishing tackle box. They came in, they whipped this thing open, and the 4 of them just went to work. They were made for this, they're born for this. They jump in, they wrap him all up, and they get him set, and they're looking, this is so cool, look at this is great. Oh, come here and look, right, here's the problem. You got that, you can see all the way. Meanwhile, they're telling him, lean over here, drink some water with some sugar in it, and if you're gonna puke, do it in the bucket. He's just like, oh God, I feel terrible. And they're like, this is so cool. So they came in, they tied him, got him all wrapped up, and said, you need to go to the hospital. They took him to the hospital unwrapped everything, they looked at it, they said, no, you're gonna be fine, we'll get you patched back up. They patched him up and said, man, I wish we didn't do this. Whoever wrapped up your finger did a much better job than we could. So props to that. It's always something different. I won't get into other stories about people forgetting that they're not at home and crossing through the reception, feeling entirely comfortable, forgetting they're not at home, strolling through from the shower to the room before they realize, wait a minute, this isn't where I'm supposed to be.
And then when I got in my top bunk, there was a fan, but it was about, less than half a meter from my head. But the fan was contained within a grill, so it didn't chop your head off. And it was banging as it rotated against the grill. So the whole thing was going shake, shake, shake and rattling like crazy, less than half a meter over my head. I thought, I'll never sleep with this. So I devised, with a piece of string, a way of pulling the frame up, protecting the fan and tying it to the lockers so that it didn't catch on the fan, and I was able to get some peace and quiet. And then I noticed there were geckos, little lizards, running upside down all over the ceiling. And my mouth was open, and I couldn't sleep because I kept envisaging that one of these things might just lose its grip and fall into my mouth. So I didn't get much sleep that night, one way or another. But the next morning, the guy was so satisfied. He said, oh, you are so clever. You fixed the fan. And it forevermore would remain with a piece of string tied to the corner of the lockers, I guess. But, that's India.
My dream has always been to open my own hostel, and so the hostel we have now is fantastic. I feel like I'm most definitely a part of the management team running this. I certainly have more than a consultant's fair share of influence on what goes on here. Many of the choices get to be directly mine, as opposed to saying, perhaps you would do this, and have the owner decide yes or no. I can say, no, really, you should do that. We're doing this. And I can have my say. So in that sense, yeah, I can feel like this is my hostel. I don't necessarily have giant visions of grandeur when it comes to expansion or anything like that, but a second hostel could be a lot of fun, could be a new challenge. And doing it from the ground up with exactly what's in my head, putting it into practice, I think would be kind of the realization of the dream that I've always started with.
Travel in general is probably one of the greatest teachers. You learn more than you ever think you're going to. I think what it teaches you is to be totally flexible. And the unexpected things that come up, they're often more interesting than what you've actually planned.
Life is unexpected. You think you know a lot, but anything can happen. Things change in an instant.
It's not so much the destination, it's the journey that counts.
Hey Dad, I think I'm gonna buy a hostel.
I like the Cluj. I like Cluj the best.
They won't do it now, he's in the camera shot.
It's a secret.
What do you work for? Huh? Where is the money?
Where is the money?
Where is Saddam?
Huh? Where is he?
If I lean over like this, do I look like a fat bastard? Well, happy dance. He can't leave. Oh man.